What you doing? Oh, do you like the books? Yes, you do. Hello fellow readers and readeresses. Today, we're doing a bit of a book haul, and by a bit, I mean a gigantic one because I have 71 books here if I counted correctly. Now that's a lot of books. The good news is, I don't know pretty much anything about the majority of these books because I like to go into my books blind. So theoretically, this shouldn't take too long. Now, I have managed to acquire these 71 books during the months of June, July, August, and September so far. I don't necessarily remember where I purchased them. I know that the majority of them are from online stores, either here in Bulgaria or Book Depository abroad. And there are some that I purchased from local bookshops. But because I couldn't possibly distinguish which one was purchased from where, I decided to split them by the genre that they're occupying. So this way we can have some order in this chaos. So without further ado, let's begin. We're going to start this one with a very famous book by a very famous author, and that is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is a classic mystery / thriller. It's a standalone, and I don't know anything about it besides that there is an isolation trope as far as I remember. A lot of people sing the praise of this book, and I'm looking forward to reading it one day soon. We're going to continue with 5 more books by Agatha Christie from the Hercule Poirot series, and those are The Mystery of the Blue Train, Hercule Poirot Christmas, The Big Four, Murder in Mesopotamia, and The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Now, as I mentioned already, these are all in the Hercule Poirot series. I believe The Big Four is book number 5, and The Murder of Roger Ackroyd is number 6, but I'm not sure about the rest of the books, which one is which. I have read a few in this series. It follows the Belgian detective Hercule Poirot, where he travels around and solves mysteries. It's kind of the villain of the day type of series where the books aren't necessarily related to each other. There is some continuity, but you don't have to read them in order. And I have read, I believe, 3 so far. The first in the series, The Mysterious Affair in Styles, if I remember correctly, that's what it's called. The Murder in Orient Express, and Death on the Nile. All of those were lovely, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of them. With these 5 books, my Hercule Poirot collection grows to 8 books. And then we have a lovely middle grade classic, and that is Heidi by Johanna Spyri. This is a story about an orphan little girl that is sent to live in the mountains with her grumpy grandfather, and I absolutely love it. I read it for the first time back in my school days, and loved it, and then when I purchased it 2 months ago or so, I read it almost immediately after that, and my feelings haven't changed one bit. I highly recommend it to people with children because it talks about some difficult topics, but generally speaking, it finds beauty and peace in everything related to even hard life. And then we have another middle grade classic, and that is The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. Now, I don't remember anything about this story. I believe I read it back when I was a kid, and I had an illustrated edition of it, and I loved it very much. But all the memories beyond that have kind of escaped my mind, so I'm looking forward to reading it again. I have it in this beautiful collector's library illustrated and color edition. It is tiny, obviously, but it is very, very beautiful. It has this little nice stamp here on the front cover, these lovely end pages. It has the sprayed golden edges and a nice ribbon somewhere there to separate the pages. Again, the letters are tiny, the pages are tiny, but it's such a beautiful little book. It has, again, these lovely colored illustrations. It just makes the entire experience so much better. And here's another one here. So yeah, can't wait to read this one. And then I have another tiny collector's library edition, and that is The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. This is, again, a classic middle grade book that everybody knows, so I don't think I need to explain it to you. It's, again, tiny but beautiful. I love it. It's just such a nice feeling of a book to hold. And the difference is that the illustrations here are black and white only. Here's another one. Fun fact is that even though this is a very well-known classic, I have never read it. I have watched the Disney cartoons and all of that, but never really read the book, so I'm looking forward to doing just that. And in the spirit of middle grade classics that everybody has read but me, we have The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I don't know anything about this besides that everybody but myself has read it and sings its praises and says that I definitely should read it, and that's what I'm planning on doing. And then we continue with a very well-known classic slash fantasy, and that is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This is a fable about a young shepherd who wants to travel the world and realize his personal legend. I read it like a week ago and I absolutely loved it. It's such a beautiful story, so peaceful and so heartwarming. This is the 25th anniversary special edition, although it's in a pocketbook format, and I really enjoy how it's being done. It has these tiny illustrations every now and then that are not a big deal. They're nothing spectacular per se, but I think they definitely improved the reading experience very much, and it helped me get through it faster, even though I didn't need much help. I really liked it, but if you haven't read this, I highly recommend it. And then we have 4 books by Thomas Hardy. I have never read anything by this author, but my mom highly recommended him to me, so I decided to give it a try. We're gonna start with The Trumpet Major. Know nothing about it, but I love this cover. I don't know why I'm like this. I love these plain, simple nature paintings for a book cover, and this one makes me feel so peaceful, and I very much like it. And then in the same style of peaceful, simple cover, we have The Woodlanders. Again, know absolutely nothing about it, but looking forward to reading it. And then another beautiful cover, we have Far from the Maddening Crowd. Again, know nothing about it. And last but not least, by this author, we have Test of the Dubervilles. I hope that's how you pronounce that. This is the one book I've actually heard about from him before that, though contradicting opinions. Some people love it, some people hate it, but I am looking forward to deciding that for myself. And we will finish the classics portion of this video with 2 books that are very special to me, and those are Anne of Green Gables and Anne of Avonlea by Lucy Maud Montgomery. Now, I read Anne of Green Gables last year, I believe, and I absolutely loved it. Anne is one of my favorite literary characters to read about. The writing style of this author is amazing. She can make the most boring, quote-unquote, things look magical. I recommend it highly to everybody who hasn't read it. This made me laugh and made me cry and just made me feel all the fuzzy, warm feelings out there. And this edition obviously is very tiny, but it's so beautiful. It has this nice cover and this lovely naked hardback. It is cloth bound in this beautiful color. It also has these lovely end pages, the sprayed edges. It also obviously has the ribbon somewhere around here. There it is to separate the pages. It has some black and white illustrations as well, which I love. Here's another one. It also has this lovely illustration on the back, which now reminds me that I need to remove these labels. And then we have Anne of Avonlea, also in the same beautiful edition. However, I have not read this one yet. I am looking forward to doing so. It's a little bit shorter than the first one, so it shouldn't take any time at all. And I really like the back illustration as well. By the way, I started collecting these editions of classics a while back when a friend of mine gave me War and Peace in this edition for my birthday, so I love them. Fantasy time. Now this is gonna be the longest portion of the video, so bear with me. And we're gonna start with The City of Brass and The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. Those are books 1 and 3 in the Devabat trilogy, which is Middle Eastern mythology inspired, and it talks about jinns. It follows a young girl that is a bit of a schemer, accidentally summons a jinn, and things go from there. I read book 1 back in 2019 maybe, and I very much enjoyed it, but because I don't think I paid enough attention, I have kind of forgotten most of it. So if I decide to read the trilogy to the end, which I think I will have to reread this one. Now I don't have book 2 because I couldn't find it here in Bulgaria. I might have to order it from Book Depository somewhere from abroad. We continue with 3 books by Samantha Shannon from her The Bone Season trilogy, and those are The Mime Order, The Song Rising, and The Mask Falling. Now those are respectively books 2, 3, and 4 from the Bone Season series. I have the Bone Season on my bookshelf, and I don't know much about the series besides that it's, I believe, urban fantasy. I have read from Samantha Shannon before, The Priory of the Orange Tree. I also own this book and I very much enjoyed it, so I thought I might give this one a try. And then we have a humongous book, which is The Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I don't know anything about this book. I saw it in a bookstore here in my city and I went straight for it. I have heard great things about Jay Kristoff's writing, more specifically about his Nevernight series, which I haven't read yet, and I've been meaning to, but I couldn't find it to purchase, so maybe I will first read this one. Now, as I already mentioned, this is a gigantic book, but it's so beautiful. It has these lovely illustrations on the inside. I always appreciate a good illustration in a book, even if it's for grown-ups. I don't care. I think we also deserve a little bit of entertainment and a little bit of extra effort. So yeah. And then we have The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. This is a young adult fantasy inspired by Russian mythology and is book number 3 in the Winter Night trilogy. I read book number 1, The Bear and the Nightingale, a few years ago and very much enjoyed it. It reads very much like a fairy tale and it gives you all the winter feelings you can ever dream of. I don't have book 2, The Girl in the Tower, I believe it's called, but I'm looking forward to purchasing it and then reading the rest of the series. And then we have sort of a classic fantasy, and that is Stardust by Neil Gaiman. This is a story about a star that falls from the sky and then a boy who's trying to find a falling star to appease his beloved. I've never read this book, but I watched the movie based on it a number of years ago, and I remember very much enjoying it, so I'm looking forward to reading this one as well. I also never read anything by Neil Gaiman but his Sandman graphic novel. And then we have 6 books by Terry Pratchett from his Discworld series, which is very well known to everybody, and I don't think it needs an additional introduction. Now we have Reaper Man, which is probably book 11 in the series, and then book 12 or 13, Witches Abroad, and then Small Gods, book 16 maybe, and then Soul Music, book 19 if I'm not mistaken, and then Hogfather, which is book 20 or 26, and then Night Watch, which is book 26 or 29. I'm sorry about the numbers. I am not very good with those. You can find them online if you're interested. Now in this series I also own Mort and Guards. I haven't read any of them so far, but it's my goal to read the entirety of the Discworld series one day, so I started collecting them now. And then we have a few Illumicrate books. We're going to start with Book of Night by Holly Black. This is an adult urban fantasy and the first book in the Book of Night series, although the first time when I read it I thought it was a standalone, and when I found out that it's a book in a series, it kind of ruined my reading experience a little bit. A lot of people don't necessarily like it, but I found it rather enjoyable, especially compared to other Holly Black books. I have read some of her young adult fiction and wasn't a big fan, but I did enjoy this one quite a lot. I have a video reviewing 10 of the Illumicrate books, and this one is part of them, so if you're interested in a more in-depth review, you can watch that. I will link it here in the corner. Then we have The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd Jones. Again, this is part of my Illumicrate video, so if you want a detailed review of it, you can watch it there. It is a young adult fantasy, and I didn't find it very impressive, so there. And then we have Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is again the Illumicrate special edition. It's a very, very beautiful book. I don't know anything about it. I believe it's an adult fantasy, though I'm not entirely sure because I am trying to stay away from any additional information. And if you'd like such, I advise you to go online and look it up. Now, I've never read anything by R.F. Kuang before, but I've heard good things about the Poppy War, so I'm excited about reading this one, and I will try to incorporate it in my reading as soon as possible. Then we have The Institute by Stephen King. I have not read this one. I don't know what it's about exactly. Again, trying to stay away from any additional information. I've heard split opinions. Some people like it, some people hate it, but it's Stephen King, so I will definitely give it a try. And then we have 3 more books by Stephen King from the Dark Tower series, which I still can't believe I haven't read. We have book 3, The Wastelands, The Wind Through the Keyhole, which I believe is book 4.5, and book 6, Song of Susanna. Now, these editions aren't very impressive, and they're not necessarily in order, but I'm working with what I have here. These are the ones that I managed to find, and I ordered the rest of the books online, so I'm expecting them to arrive. But living here at the end of the world, it takes a little bit of time to get them. And then we have Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I have never read anything by this author. I know that this is a standalone fantasy about a girl who sacrifices herself for a dragon to save her town or something of that sort. And I've heard very split opinions on it, but I am looking forward to reading it. I've always wanted to check this author, and I think now is the time. And then we have Night House by Leigh Bardugo. This is an adult fantasy / dark academia and is the first book in a series, the name of which I don't remember right now, so I'll put it somewhere on the screen. This is the first adult fiction by the author, as far as I understand, and people have, again, very split opinions on it. Some love it, some hate it. We'll see where I stand. I read the Grisha trilogy by the author and the first book in the Six of Crow duology, and I loved all of those books, so let's hope I like this one as well. Then we have The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is book 2 in the Bloodsworn series. I have book 1, The Shadow of the Gods, somewhere on my bookshelves. I haven't read it yet. I haven't read anything in this series. I have only read Malice by John Gwynne so far from the Faithful and the Fallen series, and I absolutely love it. I also read kind of 20-30% of Valor, which is the second book in that series, and loved that as well. I have a deep feeling that John Gwynne is going to be a favorite author to me, and therefore he is now a little bit of an auto-buy. I'm looking forward to reading all of those books, but you know, too many books, too little time. And then we have Master of Sorrows by Justin T. Call. This, I believe, is a young adult fantasy, and I know 0 things about it. I saw it on Stephanie's Bookverse channel one time. She said great things about it, and so I decided to give it a try, and there it is. And then we have Age of War by Michael J. Sullivan. This is an adult fantasy and book number 3 in the Legends of the First Empire series by the author. I also have book number 1 somewhere on my shelves, Age of Myth. I bought it a few months ago on a whim because I liked the cover, and then at the time I hadn't read anything by the author, and now I have read Theft of Swords, which is book 1 in the Rhaeria Revelations by this author, also an adult fantasy. I love his writing, I love his storytelling, and I'm very much looking forward to reading this one. I also heard a lot of people say great things about this series, so something to look forward to. And then we have Nolan, again by Michael J. Sullivan. This is book 1 in the Rise and the Fall series. Know nothing about it, saw it online, saw who the author is, loved the cover, and bought it. And we continue with The Blackest Heart by Brian Lee Durfee. I am such a big fan of this guy. He has a YouTube channel, and if you haven't watched it, I highly advise you to do so. He speaks about fantasy predominantly, and he reads a lot of classic fantasy, a lot of books that I've never even heard of. Now, he's the author of this ginormous book, but this is book number 2 in his The 5 Warrior Angel series. The first book, The Forgetting Moon, I also ordered, but it hasn't arrived yet because both of them arrived from abroad. I am so looking forward to reading this series. I've heard great things about it, but even if I haven't, I'd still want to read it because I'm such a big fan of this guy. And I know that's not necessarily objective, but I don't have to be. Also, look how floppy it is. It's just lovely. And then we have 2 books that need no introduction, and those are Beren and Luthien and The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Now, I am ashamed to say that up until last year, I had never read the Lord of the Rings books. I had watched the movies like a bajillion times, but the books themselves I'd never touched. So I read The Fellowship of the Rings and The Two Towers last year. No, actually, The Two Towers I believe I read this year. And then I read The Hobbit, and I still have to read the Return of the King. But I also got these books to be able to continue my knowledge on the Middle Earth. I love it. I think it's phenomenal. I think it has its shortcomings. Obviously, it's not ideal, but nothing is. And what this series and what this author has done for fantasy is unmatchable. And in the spirit of getting to know Middle Earth better, I got The Dark Powers of Tolkien and The Heroes of Tolkien by David Day. Now, these books are in Bulgarian, so you probably won't understand what the covers are saying, but they are very, very nice. They have this like rubber bound. Is that what you call it? It's very, very like bendy. They are very beautiful on the outside, but also on the inside. Lovely end pages. Every page is a work of art. They have lovely illustrations. Everything is very nicely done. It just gets you to feel like you're in the Middle Earth yourself. It's just great work. And then The Heroes of Tolkien. I am speechless. So yeah, these go into my collection. And then I picked up the Lifeship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb, which is the second trilogy in her Realm of the Elderlings series. Now we have here Ship of Magic, The Mad Ship, and Ship of Destiny. I read The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb earlier this year, and I absolutely loved it. I love her writing style and her character work, her world in general, and I'm really looking forward to getting to this series. And then we have a book that I know absolutely nothing about, and that is Song of the Far Isles by Nicholas Bowling. Now, I saw this book in a bookstore and I loved the cover and I just couldn't resist it. I think it's a middle grade fantasy and that's pretty much all I know about it. I'm looking forward to reading it and telling you more. Then we have Realmbreaker by Victoria Aveyard. This is an adult fantasy and I don't know anything about it. I believe I heard the synopsis once summarized by someone and it sounded really interesting to me, so I picked it up. Later I found out this is by the author of Red Queen, which I also haven't read, but I know it's a very famous fantasy. And the last fantasy book we have for today is The Girl and the Moon by Mark Lawrence. This is an adult fantasy and is the last book, I believe, in the Book of Ice series. I have read the Book of the Ancestor, which is the first trilogy in this world by Mark Lawrence, a few years ago, and I loved it, so I decided to pick up the entire series of this one, and I already have, so I hope I can start reading it sometime soon. We're going to continue with some sci-fi, and we're going to start with Farewell Summer by Ray Bradbury. I believe this is part of a series which name I don't remember. I have read Fahrenheit 451 a long time ago, and I think I was a teenager at the time, and I don't think I was able to appreciate it very much, so I'm wanting to reread it, but I couldn't find it. Instead, I found this one, and so I picked it up. I am looking forward to collecting more of Ray Bradbury's works. I've heard great things about him, and he's writing, so I'm looking forward to reading them. And then we have a book I don't know anything about. I just saw it in a bookstore, and I had to pick it up, and that is the Mayan Resurrection. Now, this is, I thought it was an adventure slash thriller, something like that. Turns out it's a sci-fi and it's book 2 in the Domain trilogy. It's by Steve Alton. Again, I don't know anything about it, but such a cheesy cover, I couldn't pass it by without picking it up. Next we have The Humans by Matt Haig. Not sure how to pronounce that. This is a very famous sci-fi novel. It's a standalone, adult. Don't know much about it. I know it's funny, and a friend of mine highly recommended it, so I picked it up and looking forward to reading it soon. And last but definitely not least in sci-fi, we have Skyward Flight by Brandon Sanderson. This is a young adult sci-fi collection of short stories, although I don't know how short they are. I believe there's 3 stories in here: Sunreach, Read On, and Evershore. I am looking forward to reading this one. This is book number 3.5 or so, or 2.5, not sure, in the Skyward series. I have read book number 1, Skyward, a few years ago, loved it, haven't continued, have all the other books in the series so far. I was only missing this one, picked it up, and hope to read them soon. We're going to start with an unexpected author for this genre, and that is Michael Crichton with Dragon Teeth. I didn't know that Michael Crichton has written historical fiction, but there it is. I don't know anything about it. I saw the dinosaur head, I saw the man on the horse on top of it, and I decided that this is something that I really need to read. Michael Crichton is one of my favorite authors, and so I'm looking forward to learning more about his writing. And then we have The Angel's Game by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is book number 2 in the the Cemetery of Forgotten Books. I believe that's what it's called, the series. The first book in this series is The Shadow of the Wind. I have heard great things about this series. I have not read it myself, but I'm very much looking forward to it. I still am waiting for books 1 and 3 to arrive. I'm hoping they will be here any day now. And then we move on to The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. I hope I pronounce his name properly. I don't know if you can see the cover very well. It's a little bit shiny, but I very much like it. I think it looks lovely. I have heard about this author, nothing about this book, but I believe he wrote A Gentleman in Moscow, and a friend of mine has read it and said it was great, so she recommended him as an author to me, and I picked up this book as soon as I saw it. Again, based on that same friend's recommendation, I picked Where the Crawdads Sing by Dahlia Owens. I know nothing about this besides that look at this beautiful cover. I know I have a theme going on here, but my friend said it was great and that I should definitely read it, and I will definitely read it. And last in this section, we have Sully by John Grisham. This is a very famous author that has written a number of thrillers. I didn't know he has also written historical fictions, but as it appears, he has. I've never read anything by him, but he's quite famous around here, so I decided to give him a try and picked up this book when I saw it. We're approaching the end, not as rapidly as I had initially hoped, but it is what it is. We have John Grisham here again. We're starting this section with him, with the Judges List. This is book number 2 in the Whistler series. I think it's a thriller, and again, know absolutely nothing about it. The same reason I picked this one is the same reason I picked the previous one. Then we have The Dark Hours by Michael Connelly. This is book number 21, I believe, in the Harry Bosch series. I have read nothing in this series, but I have the next book, The Night Fire, I believe, as well. And I've been planning to start reading it at some point, but I haven't yet. I will let you know what it is once I do. I just keep on picking these ones because they have such nice covers, and I know they're nothing special, but this is exactly the type of cover that I enjoy. We continue with The It Girl by Ruth Ware. This is a recent release. I believe it came out this year, and I know absolutely nothing about it as usual, but I have read from Ruth Ware before, actually rather recently, The Death of Mrs. Westaway. I have a full spoilery and spoiler-free review somewhere around here. You can watch them if you're interested. I didn't necessarily enjoy the book tremendously, but I have heard good things about Ruth Ware's writing as a whole, so I'm hoping that maybe this one will be more enjoyable than the previous one. And then we continue with a very famous book, and that is The Silent Patient by Alex. Yeah, there's no way I can pronounce this name. There it is. So this is, as I mentioned, very hyped, very famous book. At least it was very hyped a few years ago. I am, as always, late to the party. I know that it's about a woman who kills her husband one day and then doesn't say a word, and we are following a psychiatrist or something like that who is trying to get her to talk. That's all I know about it. I've heard mixed opinions, but I'm curious to read it for myself. And last in this section, we have a mystery book, and that is The Lost Symbol by Dan Brown. This is book number 3 in the Robert Langdon series. It is a very famous series. I don't think I need to give you an introduction about it. Dan Brown in general is a very famous author. A lot of people find him cheesy. I don't care. I like his writing, and I am excited to pick this one up. And we have reached the last section of this video, where we only have 2 books here. So we're going to start with The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F by Mark Manson. This is a self-help nonfiction book. It was very hyped a few years ago, I would say. Again, late to the party. We picked it up with a friend of mine for a buddy read. We are currently reading it, as you can probably see. I am about 20-25% into it. Not very impressed, to be honest. He's picking up, from what I can tell, different philosophical movements and using the flashiest quotes from them to try and convince you that he knows what he's talking about. Doesn't seem that way to me. It's a little bit shallow, a lot of cursey words. I don't know, it seems a little bit like he's trying to be too edgy, but again, I haven't finished it yet, so I will give you my full opinion once I do so. And last but not least in this video, we have Letters from an Astrophysicist by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now, I love reading about space, and Neil deGrasse Tyson is one of my favorite people to listen to talk about space because of the passion that he has for it, and he's just an entertaining person. I read Death by Black Hole and Other Space Quandaries a few months ago, maybe a month ago, again by him, and I very much enjoyed it. And once I saw this one, I decided I definitely want to pick it up, and I'm anxious to read it sometime soon. And that, my friends, marks the ending of this video. I hope it was interesting to you. I hope you found something that sparked your curiosity and made you want to read it, and I'd be happy to know what you have hauled recently so that maybe I can steal some ideas off of you. Thank you very much for watching. I wish you all a great day, and I'll see you soon in another video. Once upon a time, there was a person who wasn't subscribed to my channel. And then they did. And they lived happily ever after. This could be you.